I am a toe sucker. I am a toe sucker. I am a toe sucker. No, I'm not. What's that all about, you ask? How are you doing? Tommy Morris here. Just taking a little time out today. A little rock of babble. Why not? Podcast based on Bible and again, topical regarding today. My name's Tommy Morris. How are you, boys and girls, friends and family? Just thought I'd take today out, and I'll get to that later about the toe sucking thing because something just uh, more and more today, especially we're in election year. Some things that just sound so absurd to me. Again, and I don't think all that of myself, right? I hope a lot of the things that you're based. I'm an old guy now, right? And a lot of things that used to be common sense really should still be common sense, but the times we live in now, they don't seem like they're common sense. I'll give you a perfect example. Just yesterday, there's an article that had come up about a woman in California. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it was Alaska, Planet Fitness member. And so she's at her Planet Fitness. She's in the woman's shower room, locker room. And all of a sudden, she comes out and there's a man shaving his face in the sink. And there is a 12-year-old girl in a towel, kind of looking a little puzzled, little nervous. She takes a picture and goes to management. She addressed the man. The man said whatever he was about his sexual orientation. And so that he belonged in there. And so she went and complained. Well, she went back the next day to follow up on the complaint. She actually was going to go make a police report on it because she, of course, felt uncomfortable. Who wouldn't, right? You had some dude shaving in the sink in the woman's bathroom, right? And she found out that they canceled her membership in Alaska. You'd think they'd be a little more conservative. No, in Alaska. So I think it's time now where whatever as she put it, the shenanigans really have to stop. I mean, to this point. So it just brings out a conversation I've had prior with people. Also, it seems like now is that everybody is fighting for some type of their feeling of self, the feeling of whatever they feel is good to do, and everybody should accept or change or whatever the case may be, policy or their thoughts or whatever to the feeling of one's personal self. And there's a couple of things that I had mentioned prior is that today it does seem that the largest selling God is self. You look in the mirror, you go all around, it's all everybody has to feel good about themselves in some capacity. Their hope is based in that feeling, how they're feeling more and more about themselves. Self love. If I don't feel good, it's not, you base your theology on what makes you feel, on your experience, or you base everything is based on how you feel. And that could be very, very dangerous. And that seems to be more and more what is happening. It's the biggest idol. In fact, you know, uh, Satan's biggest idol, dark force's biggest idol, selling idol is SELF. So in the times of everybody's a narcissist or people that call other people whatever they want to call them are now trying to shift policy based on exactly how they feel. That's where the toe suckers come in. I guarantee you, how many people fetishes, right? Well, hey, come on, we're adults here. You got a fetish? How many toe suckers out there? You're not going to say it, but I tell you what, I bet there's a whole heck of a lot of them, or some kind of fetish. And if the toe suckers got together and said, "Hey, listen, you know what? We're proud toe suckers. Let's get together. I can't get a job at the podiatrist because I'm a toe sucker. They know I'm a toe sucker. And yet you start marching. Come on, toe suckers, get together. You probably have what? Maybe 15% of the population. Think about it. You're right. I don't know. Right. And then you got 10%, 7%, 5% population. What? Toe suckers, toe suckers. You start changing laws for the toe suckers. No discrimination laws for the toe suckers. Changing policy for toe suckers. I can suck toes on a beach, public. I don't care if I'm at a picnic. If I want to suck someone's toes, I want to suck someone's toes. It's my right. I can suck toes. I'm a proud toe sucker. You might think it's, you know, I'm making light of something that might be serious, but no way, shape, or form was anybody's sexual preference or anybody's feelings or something based on self is supposed to change so so many policies, laws, and legislation. And I'm not making light of the fact that people are discriminated against, right? I'm sure toe suckers are discriminated against. They look that funny, but none of nobody's sexual preference was supposed to initiate any type of policy or laws. And that's where I think we've, if our feelings get hurt or something that we don't agree with, or there's bad people everywhere. You can't stop the nonsense that happens in this world. But to base anything on people's feelings, again, I've got some people that are really close to me. I'm not the judge of what you do. I'm certainly not saying that. You know, hey, I have. There's enough. We're human. We're carnal. I battle with my own things on a daily basis. My own thoughts. Right. You always want to punch someone in the face. Right. Kinda. It's not nice. Be thinking, but you tend to have your own thoughts and battle your own things that you had in the past and how you try to adjust your behavior. So I'm not a judge here. I'm not a judge, but it just seems that more and more this generation is really, really soft. I had a conversation, some close family, and I don't know if it's just a younger generation. I'm an old guy now. I mean, I don't know if it's we haven't been per se since maybe Vietnam or larger wars that we've had. Um, people want to stick up. The younger people want to stick up for their rights or create something. I mean, you had protests in Vietnam back in the '60s, and uh, the hippie movement, and then you actually had women's equal rights, right? Women's rights coming out for in the '70s. But I don't know if we've had anything really since then. So every generation seems that they need a voice to stick up for something, no matter what. And the only issue is when you start bringing the attention to yourself and you start going for something and you get into that feeling, then you're trapped. It's a vicious cycle. Um, when you base on your beliefs or your theologies on what you feel, because what you feel from age changes. It's just a dangerous, slippery slope. So I did want to play something that kind of maybe not support so much, but just a general conversation that it just seems that that is where we are heading today. And I just want you to take a quick listen to this. Whether you agree or not, listen, it's up to you. I'm not here to try to influence or change your mind, but just just see if what do you think? Take a quick listen, and we'll come back.
The whole problem with the identity issue today is that everybody's looking at themselves and they're looking within to find answers. And we see it in the language of the culture. You've got to believe in yourself, you've got to be your best self, you've got to go on this sort of journey of self authoring and self discovery. And your identity is how you feel about yourself. And everything from a kid's book in your local public library on this subject, all the way up to an academic journal from one of the big secular universities, will say that this identity thing is subjective, so it comes from your feelings, and it's fluid, it changes from time to time. And I look at that and say, hang on, how is that serving us really today? Is that doing us any good? I mean, I have a red flag over that straight away because Jesus, apart from anybody else, warned us that the self is sinful. He said that out of the heart of man flows evil thoughts and theft and coveting and fornication and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like, if you're trapping someone in themselves, where's it going to lead them? Is it going to lead them to a good destination or a bad destination? So that's kind of the premise of the book to start with. And the gender issue is no different. There is something that is true about us, but people say, oh, yeah, but I want to look at myself and I want to elevate how I feel above what is true about me. And I say, well, no, actually, if you look at Genesis, you find out that it's not as simple as saying, oh, well, I might be made male and female, so what? Genesis actually says we're made male and female, and here's what that means for our lives. It actually is a meaningful difference. There actually are things that God made men really good at and made women really good at. And you know what? If you rebel against that in your life, it's not going to lead you to a path of happiness and joy and peace because you're rebelling against your nature. You're rebelling against what God has done. And so in the book, when I pick up the gender thing, that's what I say. Male and female, it does mean something. And Genesis contains some of those blueprints.
Right. Well, so true. And I'll tell you what, it's such an important point, Martin, that you're hitting on the issue of self, because I think this is a way bigger issue today than people realize. And I would argue that this is something that the enemy is working through right now. This what I call the idolatry of self. And my audience knows I've discussed this many times. You see all kind of idols, false god idols in the Bible that people worship. You know, the golden calf or Baal or Moloch, Nebuchadnezzar's idol, the Mars Hill statues and such. But today, the big idol that people are worshiping is what they see in the mirror. It's the idolatry of self. It's me, my life, my happiness, my wants. Even my theology is going to be based on what feels right to me, what makes sense to me, what seems fair to me. This is how we're defining God. God's purpose is to serve me and to make me happy and give me my best and happiest life now. So this idolatry of self is just such a huge issue, I think, in today's culture. And I know there's always been an element of this for the last 6,000 years, but I'll be honest with you, Martin, it seems like it's on steroids lately.
I think you nailed it. You know, we live in a narcissistic culture. We live in a culture that is more and more preoccupied with who we are, what we want, who we think we are. And it's a whole philosophy of life now. You look at yourself and you find out what you feel you are, and you might put some attributes, some trendy attributes in there, like your sexual orientation, your gender identity, maybe your personality test, maybe you're an introvert or something like this. And once you find that out, sort of the way to happiness is to just express those things. The way to happiness is express your lusts, how you feel about your sexual desires. Your way to happiness is to express your felt gender identity. And of course, the biblical warning is that the self is bad. The prophet Jeremiah says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Jesus says in Mark's Gospel, chapter 7, that out of the heart of man flows all these sins. And he lists about 14 or 15 sins. And he says these things come from the person. And we're silly enough today to think that all of this sin and oppression kind of lives in the atmosphere. You know, it's out there in culture and society and institutions. You know, the reality is that culture and society is a collection of people. And when people get together, their sins are amplified. We need to look at ourselves realistically and say, well, actually, there's a lot of sin in there. And if we're trapping people in sin, then we're just going to amplify evil doing in the culture through this philosophy.
Right.
But also, if we're trapping people in themselves, we're cutting them off from hope, because hope is something that's bigger than me. It survives the ups and downs of myself. It survives the ups and downs of life. It's constant. It's beyond me. It's greater than me. And if you're trapping someone in self as the whole foundation for their life, the best hope that they can have is that they might feel good about themselves. And actually, the data has been done, and only about 45% of American teenagers say that they feel in good mental health.
Right.
And so you can see immediately why we have a depression crisis. But also the self is inherently unstable. I mean, even the academics who write on this say that, well, identity as a theory of the self is fluid. It changes all the time. And I sit there and I think to myself, wow, imagine taking a young person, a teenager, and making them rely on their feelings as the ultimate foundation for everything. The instability that that must bring into their lives is really tragic. It's huge. And you then realize that, well, the data is also showing us that we've never had a more anxious generation in the West, even though life is materially pretty good. And so you see the depression rates, you see the anxiety rates, and you see the massive increase in the kinds of sins that Jesus warned us were living in the heart as well. And you say, hey, I have this special knowledge about how people like me are oppressed. And so I'm going to go out there and wage war in the culture and in the politics to be pro-LGBT rights, pro-trans rights, visibility for the socially anxious, all this kind of thing. And so what it does is it makes someone build a whole life, a whole philosophy, a whole way of being that is ultimately narcissistic. It comes back to me, what I want, and who I am.
And agreed. I think it's been on steroids. I don't know what you're thinking out there. I mean, if you agree, if you don't agree, but you know, I mean, am I mistaken? Everybody has their feel good. It's all, I want this now. I want, and again, and that going back to it, even a religious thing is, I want this, I want it now. People want prayer now. They want the best, exactly what that point was. Even when you're asking for prayer, they want what they want and God to give them what people want now, what they feel they want now for their life, the best for their life. And am I mistaken? I mean, are you a toe sucker out there? Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. But that's what this program is about, Rock or Babble. And it's all based on Bible teaching and beliefs. And we have an election year coming up. So with all the madness that's going on in the world, again, 4 years ago, the disinformation regarding COVID, just what I mean, the disinformation, how it spun. We were closed down, shut down just 4 years ago during this same cycle. And the spin it brought, leading all the way up through the political maneuvering, all the way through the elections. So, what are we in store for this year? I hope you're prepared. I hope you're able to start to see and pay attention to the world and what's around you and what is going on. Um, and I bring this to you because I'm in being an old guy now, right? I've been in the media business for quite a while. I'm in the world, in the trenches. I have the top business leaders, celebrities, your athletes. I'm there living it on a daily basis, except for when I'm here speaking with you now about Babel. So it's very easy for me to pick out the disinformation. I'm an expert at it because I'm truthful information person, not just to spit off stuff out random. You have to do study before you actually repost it, before you actually present it to the public from a media aspect. That's how it's supposed to be. So I can spot false misinformation and clickbait. That's what I have to do. It's part of my job, part of my calling. So there is a lot of it going around. What are we going to face this year? Right? And with all the disinformation that had come out 4 years prior and the world we live in today, are you going to close your eyes to that? Are you going to try to really kind of do a deep dive into some of these things? Because they are affecting you. Or are you just so inundated by all the stuff in the world that you're living in what I call a willful ignorance? A lot of people are doing that today, and that could be a case where also, there may be a pre-planned, the whole idea is to slip all kinds of new policies, whether it's our banking systems, whether it's the one ID, whether it's to be a good global citizen. I mean, that stuff is happening right now. This is real time. It's happening right now. Our president's not going to be the free leader of the world, right? You have your banking institutions now. You have you got the World Bank, Central Bank. You got even Verizon in a meeting last week in Washington talking about a digital global ID. That's a phone. It's a phone company. It's a wireless carrier. What's going to happen when you're not able to, one currency or digital currency, digital ID that Canada just implemented? These are real things that are happening all within the last 2 weeks. Real news, real news. So are you just so trying to make the bills, working two jobs, you, your wife, your spouse, or you just trying to hold down the fort? You got the kids trying to do the best you can, are so inundated just trying to live life that you don't have attention. You can't pay attention to what's going on. And all the while, all these policies are slipping and being passed and implemented right now, right underneath your nose. And so either you can't pay attention to it or you're just living in a willful ignorance and say, I just can't do nothing about that. Well, the whole idea is that you're just prepared for that and that there was a calling beforehand and that there was an answer. And I truly believe, without a doubt, and again, I say this out of love. I know where I'm going in the afterlife. I know what this world is, and it was prepared in a text before us, and what to expect in these kind of utopian times. This matrix, it seems that we're bizarre matrix that we're in now. So, not trying to spoil anyone's day. I'm just asking for preparedness. Open your eyes, take a look around. Don't get pulled in any type of direction. Your own life experience, don't try to base it on your pride, what you think you know. This is stupid, right? This looks right. Hardly knows. Not even we're not even close to being God in our carnal mind. You can't, you know, if you think you know, you really don't know. Okay. So, you just can't base on your life experience, this life. Have your faith, have your beliefs, have your convictions, but don't let it trump your reality and what is happening around you when it's in your face. So that's all I got to say for today on this Rock of Babel. Reach out. You know how to get a hold of me. Until next time, hopefully I will see you again in the near future. Rock on. From the beginning. 63 days, straight days. I had rights to travel. I'm